All right, everybody, good morning. Good morning to you. Happy Wednesday, hump day. Hope everybody's having a good week, as always. I want to jump right into a couple comments about the interview I did with Danny, what Bitcoin did. Some helpful comments. Buen dia, Felix. So, I guess it was Monday. This episode was released. Danny asked a lot about the power law, power curve. Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, Sandro. Good to see you. This is me yesterday, and let's go down and look at some comments here. So helpful ones from Kevin. Let's just go through it and try to see what we can get to. All right, so in my opinion, you could have explained the power law better. In my opinion, as I've said multiple times before, it needs to be explained from a high level, stepping back. Most people don't understand data analysis, regressions, math. They don't remember high school math. Next time someone asks you on a podcast, what is power law? Go back to trend lines for a set of data, the main types of trend lines, etc. You're good for this, particularly because you've done a video series on the different trend lines against Bitcoin and others, plus you explain it a bit on your site. I bet Danny and lots of listeners don't understand regressions and trend lines from a fundamental first level basis. Step back and start there, in my humble opinion. Act like the audience and podcaster knows nothing. And then some other further commentary. And if you could show different trend lines against Bitcoin, gold, S&P, or whatever other different assets, point out the R squared, etc., I feel that would help in understanding as well. Then go into more details on the power law itself, as you did in that recent podcast. Also, I think you missed an opportunity when Danny asks something like, why does Bitcoin grow in a power law or something like that? You didn't mention. Even though I know you know this, as you've explained it before, network growth, Metcalfe's law, the fact that the underlying network is also growing as a power law. You could have mentioned and showed how the number of addresses grows as a power law, the hash rate. And I forget if there's something else that also grows as a power law, which then translates to price over time, so far growing as a power law. Also, Danny saying he's skeptical of the power law is also baffling to me and is a piece of evidence to me that he just doesn't understand it or basic trend lines or regressions. I would like to know what he means by that. Does he mean that he doesn't agree that Bitcoin has grown as a power law up till now? Or that he does, but he's skeptical it will continue into the future? I mean, it's undeniable that the price of Bitcoin has grown as a power law over time, as well as address growth and hash rate. Now, one can argue if that will continue going forward or at what point in the future it may not grow at that trend line. But when you do an exponential and power law regression or others, the R squared is highest on the power law, and simply looking at the trend line, particularly in log, it's clear that Bitcoin has grown as a power law. Everything above is what needs to be shown and explained to Danny and audiences. It's pretty clear to me that people like Danny don't get it from the basic level. So thank you, Kevin. Very detailed analysis. Also, Matt says my audio levels are still low. Let me know if my audio is still bad. As I said, my OBS on the streaming side had for years a compression filter that I took off, so it should be better. I've tried to boost some other levels as well, but this is just a quiet mic, and I'm not in a studio, so I still want to not pick up too much background noise. But if the levels are hard, let me know, guys. I mean, if the levels are bad, let me know. Sandra's got some comments as well. Let's take a look. Been thinking quite a bit about the question of whether TradFi pulls BTC into exponential growth or BTC pulls TradFi into power. couldn't we view the past priced action as a constant push and pull between exponential and power growth, with power winning out in the end so far? BTC's excursions to the 90th or below the 20th percentile could be viewed as TradFi behavior, taking control for a while with speculators selling, weak hands getting flushed out, hodlers sticking around, and the network effect doing its thing. We continue to oscillate around the trend curve with organic adoption. So we could say that ever so slowly, BTC is pulling TradFi into its power orbit even now. It's just a question of time and relative market cap. Long time frame, however. Yes, thank you, Sandro. Very good point, good questions. I think this all jives together with what I've been showing. Again, let me know if you're having problems with the levels. I'm trying to boost them as much as I can. It's through my own preamp, through OBS, and then through StreamYard. So I get to multiple platforms. So StreamYard is, I think, as of late, the one that makes it too quiet, let's say. Okay, hold on 1 second. Need to change this right now. Okay, you all can see that, I believe. All right, let's go to what Kevin talked about first, and also I'll get back to you, Sandro, because I think this is all very good, I think, for this episode. One more, by the way, from Benjamin. He wrote, chart shows overlaid difference between exponential growth and power law growth, just a way to help a non-technical person understand the basic idea. Does this capture it? And I said yes. So here he has log linear. And so on log linear, exponentials will be straight, which is TradFi. Power law will be like this. Faster at the beginning, slower as it goes on. So we'll get to this as well. But, whoops, so much to cover. I'm thinking about a lot of this as well. And I think what's really going to be interesting is the BTC gold chart. Okay. We'll look at that again in a second. But I think that's really going to be high signal for us, because there it's explicitly another hard money asset that also moves in exponential. But when we compare it to Bitcoin, it also moves in power. So that is something that we need to sort of understand and see where it goes and see how this could look over the long term. Just an update of where we are right now at this moment. Okay. I got 104,319, which is a little bit high even based on, just checking my phone this morning, dipping below 103. Next week we'll get some derivatives. Derivatives markets are growing. James talked about that as well. IBIT options are taking over from Deribit. Wall Street knows how to do this stuff for sure. But, and I might go on a few tangents. You guys know how I do this. Even a lot of the power crew, the power law crew people, Giovanni, maybe not Giovanni, I haven't followed recently what he's been saying here, but Plan C, Sminston, Cena, and APSK. I wanted to show something that APSK put out yesterday. It seems most of those guys, and I haven't talked to them about this, so I don't know, I don't want to misrepresent their views, but most of them are pretty much discounting the cycles All right, let's look at APSK here. The 4-year Q4 euphoria never came. Again, we're not through Q4. We're not even halfway through November. I know it's coming, but maybe it's just delayed. Could be. Many voices on X assume a stellar 2026. I'm a little bit more concerned. Sentiment isn't great right now, and stocks are at all-time highs. If equities turn negative, I'm just going to hope that the power curve holds. My focus now is making sure my cash flow is solid so that I can continue buying through a bear market if it comes. Sound advice. Sound advice. What for sure is happening is we are making a new minimum. All right, this is a great cloud, power curve cycle cloud. I love that name. We're making a new minimum for sure. Will we tunnel through like he joked about earlier, or will we pump? I'm more than happy to leave open the door for a pump. It seems much less likely to me that we take a big dip, although anything can happen. But this is what we have. This is the data that we have. This is the history. This is a great chart actually to start our illustration of what a power curve is. And I know a lot of you guys here, high signal, you're following a lot of people, and even if you're watching me here, you're probably ahead of 99% of the people that think about these numbers in general. So his base is the power curve, and you can see that he's using, I think, the 5 percentile band of the power curve on a quantile regression. So you get this number. And then whatever price does based off of this bottom band, which is solid, you know, he will show the deviations from the trend, the max and the mins, right? So that's how you can get this cloud. If I told you that this line was an exponential, or sorry, was a, we can't really see it here because this is linear, but if I told you this was a power line, then you can just look at it. You can look at the price action. You say, okay, this is clearly following the trajectory of a power curve. As far as why it does it, and getting back to Kevin's question and also what Sandro's talking about, there's a few different things to say, and honestly, I can't. I need to go back and listen. It's one of these things when you are just sort of talking a lot about charts, you kind of forget exactly what you said, so I don't exactly remember my full explanation to Danny even. I know that sounds crazy, but yes, it's probably the most likely explanation that the network of Bitcoin, the fact that it is a network of nodes growing, you know, that 80-20, where a few large nodes take most of the connections, many small nodes take few connections. You can draw power curves all over the place there. That also happens over time. Now, even if we go to an old monetary network, and I know people like to call gold a monetary network, that's just not how it's growing, okay? These wavy lines show you that it goes up and down in exponential, and it even can be a downward trend, as it was from 1980 to 2000. Now we're back on an upward trend. But overall, you draw a trend line through it. As Kevin said, you can clearly see it's a straight line on log linear. That is an exponential curve. And this is something to keep in mind. This would set a new record of above the exponential curve. 2.54x is the record, according to my calculations. We're not there yet. All right, we're bumping off there. But we could get close to a record as far as a multiple over or under the power curve. We can look at stocks, same phenomenon. Again, I'll take out the line. As it grows, it has different rates of growth. You never know exactly what it's going to be, but over time you can start to get a picture of generally what happens. So we get this line, 97% R squared. That explains what it's doing. Straight line on log linear scale. Stocks are also an exponential curve. I want to come back to Sandro's questions because they're very good. But let's look here. This is tech over the last 20 years, 15 years since Bitcoin's been around. Sometimes below the trend, sometimes it blows above the trend. You know, Wall Street's a tough game to play. Sometimes above, then falls back below, and rises above. But in the last 15 years, we get a band that's between 1.37x the trend on the upside, 0.62x on the downside. Trend is a 98.7% R squared for the top 8 tech stocks in America. Now they, like gold, are going gangbusters over the last 2 years, 41% CAGR, and could very well keep up through that for a while. But over the long term, nobody knows. Maybe they will go to this faster CAGR, or we're going to find out, like ChatGPT is just a bunch of, new lipstick on a pig is what it seems like to me with my latest chats. I don't know about you guys. I know I joked about that with Danny, but the response time is slower. Chats get very clunky very quickly, and they're obviously trying to manage their costs. So we'll see. We'll see if it continues, but it's definitely not a power curve. It's growing at a very, very fast, constant rate. Okay, I think, again, I know we have different people tuning in with different levels of background, understanding of what the power curve is here, but most of you probably have heard me say what I just said many, many times. So now let's look. So now I want to address what Sandra is talking about. Actually, I'll just go to the big picture. So what Benjamin wrote here and what he did, this is what I want to talk about. And then we'll come back to the BTC gold chart because I want to talk about that as well. Sorry for my delay. Okay, so you've seen me post this many times. I think it's a good one to just keep coming back to. So different price models of Bitcoin. We can shoehorn in different price models. All right. Plan B has always had a very aggressive model based on a stair-stepping curve, which is not scale invariant. Which a power curve is scale invariant, but this is based on Bitcoin's exponential decline in coins, which is 16% per year, declining. So we take these off. It's always been too aggressive. I've drawn my own power trend on stock to flow, which again, plan Bs are still a power trend. It's not a exponential trend. These look a little bit better than his because mine adjust every day. But as we talked about, notice the difference between the dotted red line and the solid red line. Let me take this off. Okay. As of right now, that difference is 230 grand. All right. That's because stock to flow is not a very good predictor of scale invariance because it's not scale invariant. It changes. It takes a year to level out. You know, it's just the way that Bitcoin declines its coins in the actual physical native form is a negative 16% per year. That's what it works itself out to. But it's even more complicated than that because it's flat for 3 years and then 1 year it goes down. But if you average all that out, it's negative 16% per year. So it's just not a good model for what Bitcoin could possibly do with price. And also you can see that the difference between measuring this from 2016, which is a better model than Plan B's, right? Mine are even closer, right, than Plan B's. No point to just make random models that have gold and silver in them and then don't look good. But again, the reason that the dotted red line is worse than the solid red line is because we haven't calculated anything from the year 2016 on the dotted red line. So it's not a scale invariant thing. It doesn't know exactly when the halvings will start or stop. There's a general idea, but it still doesn't know exactly. And the bottom line is it's not a scale invariant thing, which is what a power curve should be. So we see that we're $230,000 difference in price. And then if you actually just run a simple power curve equation on price, do nothing else, you get two curves which are almost identical. They look very good. And as of even today, right now, like this gets back to Kevin's point, like it's undeniable to say that Bitcoin is not following a power curve. Did I use too many negatives there? It's clearly following a power curve. And if we only measured a power curve from the 2016 level of Bitcoin's pricing data, we'd only be 6K over what the actual curve is today. And look at that. We just got over 120 in the last 2 days. I didn't even notice that yesterday. So we're only 6 grand off. The black solid line takes all of Bitcoin's data, pricing data. The dotted pricing line stops after 2016 and projects. So it's an amazing fit. 96% R squared for them both. Very, very good. Now, if I wanted to try to shoehorn in an exponential, just a simple exponential curve over Bitcoin's price, as Ben did here, right? But let's look at actual data. This is your exponential curve on Bitcoin. There's no funny games, nothing. I'm just making an exponential curve on the Bitcoin price with this solid green line. So you see it's your flagship straight line on log linear. It's an exponential curve. But then let's start to ask ourselves how good of representation of that is what Bitcoin is doing. How good is it? Well, we go to today. Actual price, 104,319. Power trend, 120. Power trend from 2016, 126. Exponential trend based on all the Bitcoin pricing data, $703,000. So it's clearly not a good fit. It's clearly not what Bitcoin is doing. It's, undeniable. Okay, let me try to come back to Sandro's questions because I'm still not Oh, I had them up on the screen the whole time, sorry. Never remember all my production stuff. So right now, it is true that Bitcoin is pulling TradFi to power. We can see that with MSTR. I don't have a convenient chart, but if you looked at MSTR from only 2020, did a trend, it is kind of looking like a power curve. Makes sense. Other treasury companies will do the same as long as they can not go bankrupt, as long as they can pay their interest. The rub, the complicated thing, is that that interest remains a straight line across the chart, just as the rate itself will always just go across. And at some point, that will be weird. That will just be weird. If Bitcoin's growth declines every year, as it does, there's going to be a crossing point. And at that point, is it going to be like, well, we're giving up on Bitcoin, now we're going to other assets that are growing faster, or will that not be the case? Let me show you some interest rates to explain. Just 1 second. All right. Bonds. Where's bonds? One second. All right, so here's the 10-year. The Fed only published the 10-year back to 1971, but TradingView does have a better view. All right. We've been to some of the lowest interest rates ever. On the 10-year. During the silly season, you get down to 0.5%, a little over 0.5%. And we've been up to, on the 10-year, 16%. Interest rates do go up, they do go down all the time, of course. Everybody has a slightly different interest rate with your bank, or whenever you lock it in. But generally, if you look at an interest rate over time, and you're paying 5% fixed on your mortgage or whatever, then that's just going to be 5% across the chart. 5%, 5%, 5%. Now Bitcoin, the weird thing is that it's not going to do that after, well, right now it's not doing that. And the question will be, that I haven't heard necessarily anybody completely answer, is what happens when those worlds collide. So this is a long time frame, as Sandro mentioned. Let's look at a long time frame. Assuming Bitcoin stays on this power curve, look, the trailing 12 months can be a crazy thing. It can go up thousands of percent, down, negative, which is not even shown on the chart. But if you do it on the curve, what's the percent return of the curve? It declines over time. Right now we're getting to 42% a year. By the end of the year, 42%. And by 2070, it will be 10. And much more stuff is going to happen before 2070, as you know, I've shown you lots of charts about that. Probably 2040, 2035 is going to be like really exciting times for Bitcoin. But if your cost stays the same at whatever it is here, look, let's look at the 10-year treasury now. It's 4%. Right, again, you lock that in. You do whatever you need to do to manage your capital in your business. You got a 4% cost of capital as time goes on every year. You got to make sure you're at least clearing 4% on your capital, because you need to have at least that much money to pay interest. And let's say you don't even have a good business, a good cash flowing business. You can rely on Bitcoin for a long time because it's growing faster than 4 or 5%, right? It's growing at 42% per year, but that is declining. So as long as this power curve keeps up, we have to assume that at some point it's going to cross the traditional, TradFi cost of capital. Again, pick your number there, but major established TradFi businesses aren't going to want to pay more than, I don't know, between 2 and 7%, depending on the type of debt. So that's my only question about the power curve itself. Like, how much longer can it go? Because if your capital itself declines in value relative to other fiat units, which they're not going to get rid of anytime soon, like we know they're going to fight tooth and nail to keep printing money. What happens at that point where Bitcoin is actually growing slower than the interest rate? And one of the things that I've hypothesized is, where's my chart? Is we go back exponential. So if this is the trend, let's say even we go exponential in 2025, that's a 42% per year, which is actually a little bit less because I used the daily rate at the end of 2025. It doesn't really matter. It's this line right here that I just drew is a 42% CAGR. So if say this trend disappears and we just start growing at a 42% CAGR, it's possible. Then everything makes sense again. Like TradFi can keep doing what it's doing. People have debt, people have interest. Bitcoin goes up, grows in an exponential function. Do you mean this curve? Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is that Danny mentioned on his show that Thomas Pacchio was talking about this, and I'd encourage people to go back and listen to that episode as well. You know, a lot of Bitcoiners are going to be very rich in fiat terms if it keeps growing like this. Right? It's growing faster than the power trend then, in this case. No one knows the number, right? No one knows what the curve will settle on, right? Because even with stocks and bonds, you can be above the trend and under the trend, and there's no perfect trend. But yeah, if we fall off the power curve, I don't think we'll fall off to the downside. I think we'll fall off to the upside. I think it'll just turn exponential like everything else. But to me, that seems like a less exciting world. It's not a Bitcoin world. It's still a fiat world. It's a government printing press world. It's a fiat monopoly. They still control all the guns. They control your KYC. They control if you can withdraw coins or not. That's what that looks like. And the even harder thing to bend your mind around is, well, let's say that Bitcoin stays on this power curve and pulls everything power. And this is the point I was trying to make to Danny as well. Well, in that case, none of your treasury curves make any sense, because unless they just keep going down closer and closer to zero, according to the Bitcoin growth curve, which could happen, I guess, right here. Focus on the dotted line. This is the growth of the power curve itself. So if all interest rates just keep approaching zero, that could work. But they have to be like very short-term debt, and they have to be rolling over all the time at a lower and lower rate. Because if you would roll like a 30-year fixed mortgage at, I don't know, 5%, at some point Bitcoin would go worse than that return. And then you'd be like, well, why do we hold Bitcoin if it's worse than that return? It's a mind-bending thing to think about. Good morning, Pan-B. It's probably broken, hasn't it? I don't know. I haven't checked it, but it's a good question, I guess. What does it look like for the Turkish lira? I need to grow that myself. I might be able to do it quickly. Let's do it. Let's do it while we're live. Give the people what we want. Or at least I want to do that. So I'm sure it broke it. Let's see if I can do this quickly. Sorry, it's going to take a second, but I'll do it. I'll do it. I can pull it in relatively easily. It's not going to be like market, but it will be close. Turkish lira is actually pretty close. Like, they don't have a big black market discrepancy yet, which is interesting. All right, let me pull in TRL. This is such a huge file that I decided to do it on. All right, I don't want too much dead time, so I'm going to keep talking, but I'm going to slowly build out what you're saying. And you guys probably don't want to hear about the philosophy of, a 30-year decline in Bitcoin's growth relative to fiat. You want to know what's happening in the next year or two or three. What I do think is interesting is, even here, there's a lot of people that are expressing doubt, not necessarily about the power curve, but a little bit. Is the power curve going to hold? Again, I think it holds. It just breaks to the upside, not to the downside. One second. I'm going to do it for you guys. Get Bitcoin and Turkish lira and see how much it broke off the power curve. This is a great question, actually. Come on, man. That is totally correct syntax. Why are you having even basics problems here? It'll be worth the wait. It'll be worth the wait. Yeah. I know the power curve has been breaking with worse currencies, that's for sure. But again, the dollar is the best looking horse in the glue factory. Wrong. There we go. Very soon, very soon. All right, let's put Bitcoin in terms of Turkish lira. And let's see how it goes. All right, I got to change my formatting. Let me get the number to confirm to you guys. You can tell me, or I can just do it. What's the Turkish lira price in Bitcoin at the moment? Should be basically 40x. Come on, grow out. This is a huge chart. It's like a few million, right? Turkish lira price in Bitcoin. Bitcoin price in Turkish lira. Sorry. Yeah, 4.4 million. Thank you. It's coming. I'm the king of dead time on my streams. We're getting Bitcoin and Turkish lira, and we're going to draw the power law per Plan B's request. It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. I promise, I promise. I'm trying to shove it into my huge dollar file, which is just going to make it enormous. But we'll get there almost. Do I have a lira? Don't think so. All right, the formatting will just be without anything, just numbers. Almost there. Special for you guys. I should just do this with every currency, shouldn't I? Why is that stopping there? Something in my data made it hiccup on October 9th, almost before it was done. I don't know why. Do I not have an October 9th? That would be the reason. I forgot that this wasn't updated. I truly apologize for the dead time, guys. I hope that this is not, I hope that this is worth it. Swedish franc, BTC power law. Swiss, you mean, not Swedish, right? Or are you just having fun with All right, I got to manually paste in from October for this Turkey data. Give me just a second. I forgot that was not part of the upload that I normally do because I don't need this typically. It's coming, coming, coming. and just manually paste over for now. Very exciting. You guys are champions for hanging through here. For those that are joining, I'm going to do a power law in Turkish lira. Decided to do it on the fly. All right, so where is my try? There we go. All right, and paste values this time. Highlight so I don't forget. You're still not picking up that 42 point. All right, finally, all the dead time. Let's see if this ran. Let's see how slow this is. Too long. I know. My skills aren't as good to get this thing updated. I'm still trying to get different currencies coming from different places and don't have a fully great system yet. Again, all the reason why I don't have this stuff just splashing up on the website for you. All right, let's see if it draws it and how it draws it. Because I haven't even reviewed. Something has drawn. Something has drawn. Let's take off the extremes. Ready? Da, 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 da. Here we go. Turkish lira. Power curve. What does it look like? We're at 4.4 million Turkish lira per Bitcoin. The trend is 2. So it's as I suspected. We're breaking it to the upside. And we're actually still in the band area. You know, maybe there's hope for the lira after all. But, I mean, it's obviously different than the dollar curve, right? You can see similar effects, but as far as what it does, right, let's look at the 100th percentile, which is like the max. Anything is possible, I guess. Remember, with the dollar curve, we're just below this black line. With the Turkey curve, we're up in the 80th percentile, but not by any means have we destroyed it. So yeah, actually, I can conclude to you and tell me what you guys think of this. It's still a 97% R squared. It hasn't broke it. And if it does break it, it's going to break it to the upside. Now, if this is actually going more exponential than power, that'd be my next step. I can't do that on the fly right now, but I will try to do that because it's a good question. The Turkish lira has been inflating at 40% per year for a while now, and I mean money supply, not just price, but money supply. So that's a very exponentially growing currency that, as far as I can tell, is still on a power curve. Yeah, that's pretty wild. Switzerland is in their own bubble of pleasant living. It really is amazing. What do you guys think of this? I thought this was going to be blown out of the water, but it hasn't necessarily. It's not perfect. You know, the Bitcoin curve is so nice. Where's my Bitcoin curve with the percentiles? Can't find anything anymore. Here's Lira. Here's Bitcoin. All right, so here's Lira. Here's Bitcoin. The Bitcoin curve is so nice in dollar terms because it literally, you can almost see the slope is like the same, right? It just like, it projects out beautifully. This gives me a lot of confidence. The Turkish lira slope is kinked a little bit, and the gold curve, by the way, is kinked. All that means is it's not, you know, we're stretching the levels of what was possibly or previously seemed believable. And obviously here we're stretching it to the upside. We're pulling it up a lot higher. But yeah, Bitcoin and Turkish lira is actually not broken. It's still 97%. Back in the 2022 puke, you could get one Bitcoin for 330. Wow, that's crazy. 320,000 Turkish lira. Now, 4.3 million. That is nuts. That's why Bitcoin. That's crazy. So more than 10x in 3 years. But it still fits a power curve. Ah, thank you, Slonic. Now tell me, guys. I'll try boosting it again. I'm literally boosted to the max on my StreamYard. On the other stuff, it's not as much, but I will pump it even more. Did the audio change just there? Did it get better? Or it's the same? So wild to me that it's not. I want to try some different mics as well, other dynamic mics. This does, I like it because it doesn't take in sound from the outside, but it's really, really hard to boost. Okay. Anyway, what do you guys think of that? I'm gonna boost it a little bit more here for you. Check, check. Even more? Better? A little bit better? Same? Thank you, Auntie. I don't know. But clearly what is happening is what I would describe in general, right? If we're going to break power laws, we're breaking them to the upside, not the downside, which you would expect, because the power law is a more sustainable curve. Thank you, David. I mean, I'll try to keep boosting it because I don't, I want to try to be universal, but also I don't like peaking the levels too much. Well, the thing is it's still, you can draw it according to any asset or any behavior. The dollar is an exponentially inflating asset. It's a store of value, but it's not a very good store of value. But when we put the dollar in terms of Bitcoin, it grows in power. Same for gold. Same for gold. And this is the most exciting chart, frankly, because gold is a store of value. Everybody knows it. And gold is outcompeting Bitcoin on an exponential basis right now. Gold is growing at about 40% per year, so is Bitcoin for the last 2 years. So gold is, gold is doing very well. But that still, to me, doesn't seem like we won't revert to the mean. And it's quite interesting to me that the best gold price as of the last few years was still 3 years ago at under 10 ounces of gold per Bitcoin. So gold shows us the opposite behavior than the Turkish lira is showing. But they're both still power curves. What's happening is Bitcoin, a power growing network, like networks grow in power, and whether you call it the 80-20 rule or few large nodes with many connections, many small nodes with few connections, sustainable growth. And any system we compare it to, it's still in power. So the Bitcoin power curve dominates. It's the dominant feature of growth. Thank you for the repost, Satoto. Right. Gold USD is an exponential growing asset. You can clearly tell that it's stocks over the long term, gold grows log linear straight line. But this is interesting. I should have, I'd always heard people talk about how the weaker currencies, they kind of blow out a Bitcoin power curve, but you're actually just seeing the opposite phenomenon of the same thing happening. Gold is growing much faster right now to Bitcoin vis-a-vis the dollar, so it's on the bottom end of the power curve. Turkish lira is growing much slower as far as valuation of Bitcoin vis-a-vis the dollar. It's inflating faster. Yeah, so it's vis-a-vis the dollar, it's exponentially inflating. But vis-a-vis Bitcoin, its value is, I guess you can say, also inflating faster, but it's looking worse and worse. But still on a power curve when you translate it into Bitcoin, which I wouldn't necessarily predict. I would have thought this would have been even outside the rainbow bands, or like pulling it, even higher, like getting to the 100th percentile, but it's not. That's surprising to me. Is it surprising to you guys? There's a lot of bearishness right now in the Bitcoin space that I don't necessarily think is justified. Um, Look, I know you guys know I give like 1,000 caveats, kind of like James, but we could always go lower. We could always go lower, but we're right on trend. And even what APSK said here to me is bearish. I understand his concerns. I'm not saying I know the future any more than he does. Wall Street's involved. Wall Street is very much involved. We got to start to analyze derivatives more, ETFs. Let's see how much Wall Street is affecting, because Wall Street knows about this curve. They know how good of a fit it is, unquestionably. And as my buddy Kane says, they like to front run. So I'm sure they're trying to front run this volatility. He's had some good calls, some not. He's a big ETH guy. I guess that's all I'll say about him. And I want to get this one to show you guys next week as well, because this is a good chart. I mean, this cloud is nice. Shows you the full boom and bust cycle. And just because we're below the min does not mean it has to just tunnel through. I mean, we could absolutely catch that spike. Look at how much time we have until this is 2026, this line. It's plenty of time to explode up. Again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying why discount? Why say for sure it's not happening? That's what I keep saying. Just because we're making a new minimum, and we're next year, 2 years from now, this same chart will have a new blue line as a minimum. That's okay. I will say, looking at the way this thing spikes, my previous 250K, which is still pretty, it's just the 90th percentile, that does look far away. Could we see 150? Could we see 200? Looks better. 250K seems far away. Yes, yes, it is. Yep, Square was great news. Big news. Lots of sellers at these prices. I think I have my realized loss chart updated. Sorry. I know you guys love this dead time. Well, I slightly tweak my charts. Here's realized losses. Okay, so again, short term, long term, it's a lot of noise, but let's just put them together. All realized losses. They come later. You know, people get scared. A lot of people that are indeed short term bought the top, selling the bottom or the intermediate bottom. Okay. What are they doing right now? A lot of people sold this bottom exactly the precise time you should be buying. $16,000 Bitcoin. So many sales over a 30. This is a 30-day roll. This gold line. A little bit of seller exhaustion of sellers as of the last few days, but still selling, still in a down market. Everybody's scared. You know, I could easily see this chart bumping back up. We go down even further. It's hard for me though to see that that chart represents, like, I don't know, here. This seems unreasonable. That we're coming off of, you know, the all-time highs, and we're going to go all the way back to the equivalent of 30% of where we were. Here's the other side, realized profits. Okay. Probably need to get this in one chart. Losses, profits. Losses, profits. So profits look a little bit smarter. People taking the big chips off the table during the initial pumps. During the bull. During the, you know, the full pump, people taking chips off the table. Always happens. Again, muted relative to the prior. Mini cycles relative to the prior profit taking, quite muted. Kind of looks like a dip. This was a good idea, Pan B. I got to just start showing you guys on other currencies. Power curve still fits. Kind of weird, actually. And I presume you think it will continue, Tim? The other thing, talked about it a lot, is, we're still so small. Showed you guys this chart yesterday. I'll show it again. For as liquid and as transparent a market that Bitcoin is, we are just like a flea compared to other mining or production industries, right? So oil, $2.2 trillion at the moment. It's been as high as $3 trillion industry, which is about 10 times higher than gold, which is now becoming a $400 billion industry, which is about 20 times higher than Bitcoin, which is a $17 billion industry. Bitcoin's just that small little orange line at the bottom. Oh, I got to, it's always a thing. Got to change number 3 to number, got to change my number in there. These are all answers to your questions why this stuff isn't on the site. I'm changing around all the time. I don't have a fixed setup yet. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Oil, gold, Bitcoin. $2.2 trillion, 371 billion, 17 billion. You can't look at that market and tell me it's, I don't know, oversaturated. Yeah, they are certainly a big driver of short-term cycles. I keep thinking about this, though, when I think about those guys. Like, Saylor has a low enough cost basis. He knows what he's doing. He's got all these perpetuals. But even he's paying 10%. Bitcoin grows at 41%, but it is declining. So at some point, he's going to have to be careful. Not now, though. He's got plenty of room, plenty of runway. If swap rates start to climb to, I don't know, 10, 15%, then a corporate bond or corporate issue such as his, corporate perpetual, might need to pay 500 basis points more than that. All of a sudden, Saylor's paying 15, 20%. Then things could look a bit dicey for him, especially as Bitcoin continues down that curve of less and less every year a return. And it's still going to be volatile in the meantime, right? Like, even though, like, think about how scared everybody is right now, and we're on trend, and everybody is super scared. And I'm not trying to sound like a tough guy. Like we could go well lower, but um, you know, the power curve is demonstrable here. It's just you can't unsee it. How does my log bottom look here? It's gonna break the chart. Try it again. Here we go. There's your straight line on log. Don't look at these dates, but look at these dates here. There's your straight line on log scale. That's power curve. Broke it. Okay, here's Turkish lira on log. Tooltip dates are correct. Don't look at these dates down here. I have to say I'm surprised that it's still within the band. I mean, it's very close to the top end. Let's be clear, but uh, you know, I don't plan on buying any Turkish lira, selling Bitcoin for Turkish lira anytime soon. But it's still a power curve. Yeah, I agree with you, Ansi. I think all you got to look at is shite. I think I just cut it off. First of all, this one. All right, so we got some runway on AI tech, you know, and we could have huge dips. Donald Trump could tweet whatever, and we could have huge dips in this market. But there's a lot of cheddar behind this AI game, so they're going to keep pumping that market, and then gold as well. Oops, I don't have the two trends, but this trend right here is also 40% exponential. So that's going to keep pumped as well. So that's at least how I'm thinking about the market is you have two assets that Bitcoiners probably also would like to invest in, probably have sold some Bitcoin to invest in, both gold and major tech stocks. But at some point, Bitcoin is going to be too cheap, even at those valuations. You know, is it going to be 20 ounces of gold? Is it going to be 15? I don't know. But we're getting pretty cheap for a gold bug. And then this validates the other part of the thesis that still it's way better than holding other currencies, right? So even though it's at the top end of this curve for the Turkish lira, I wouldn't want to take the bet on that. I wouldn't want to say, oh, Turkish lira is a little bit overvalued in terms of Bitcoin. No, I don't think so. But that's what I'm trying to deliver. Use it as an anchor. The math's not that complicated once you dig into it. It's just declining growth. That's all it is. Stocks and gold are growing pretty fast, that constant growth at the moment, like really, really fast. And tech as well. Where's my damn? Here's gold. %40 a year. That. What goes up will come down, unless you're Bitcoin, because you have a number go up technology, difficulty adjustment, and not constrained by the laws of supply, only demand. Anything else for today, guys? Tomorrow I'm in Amsterdam. Bitcoin Amsterdam, Bitcoin Europe. Do let me know if you are there. Just send me an email. Also, if anybody wants any merch, let me know. We're going to do a run. I want to get this up on the website. It's not coming soon. But my guy, my Estonian buddy, is going to do a run of t-shirts. So if you want a t-shirt like this or another one that you've seen me wear, Old Man Yells at Bitcoin, which is a Simpsons meme, Porkopolis ones, just let me know. Send me an email. We'll do a bespoke run on some merch here in the next week or two, and happy to deliver some shirts. But it's not, you're not going to find this on the website, so just send me an email if you're interested. A few people have done so recently, so that's why we're going to do it. I will indeed, Sandro. Thank you for the comments as always. I'm not sure I fully answered your questions after I get on these tangents, but seeing this in terms of Turkish lira is actually enlightening. So thank you, Pan B, as well, for showing that. I guess these curves can stick around longer than we imagine. All right. I won't be back till I think Tuesday with another stream. So it'll keep getting better and better. Eventually, it gets more charts on the site, guys. Thank you for your patience. Check out James's site. Of course, he has tons of great on-chain data right there for you to look at on his website. One Base Money, Porkopolis.io, CryptoVoices.com. You can donate some BTC as well to my BTC Pay server. Always appreciated. That's going to be it for today. Signing off. See you guys next week. Take care.